The world's largest bank has now completed the Bitcoin backflip that none of us saw coming, or did we? Because Jamie Dimon has been publicly spatting at the bit about how much he hates Bitcoin, and now they are increasing their holdings by over 60% in the biggest backflip in history. And that's not all of the story. There's been a big amount of price manipulation lately, and it seems like the world's largest asset manager is working with the world's largest bank to collude and manipulate the Bitcoin price because, hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they say. But we're going to get into all of this. But first, let's get into what we just saw from JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, as they now hold over 5 million shares of the Bitcoin ETF, over 343 million. And that is up 64% since June. So literally, in just about a couple months here, we've seen Jamie Dimon do the biggest backflip that we've ever seen in Bitcoin's history. And I think it's all lining up with a specific time here as well, because we have two major events that have just happened. Now, one of them includes this from Jerome Powell.
Crypto space.
So our view is that banks get to decide who their customers are. That's not our decision. And so banks are free to provide banking services to the crypto industry, to crypto companies. And banks are also free to conduct crypto activities as long as they do so in a way that is, protective of safety and soundness.
Now, you listen to that, right? Banks are allowed to do basically whatever they would like.
Banks get to decide.
And decide what they want to do with all of this. And it's interesting because it's essentially just highlighting what we've been seeing from the Bitcoin space here recently, where the regulations are now becoming more friendly for the Bitcoin space. So Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink, they love that regulation. Hey, bring me more regulation, right? They want to make sure that they are complying with everything. Or do they? Or do they just see, hey, this is an opportunity for me to make money, which is what I truly believe is what this underlying message from Jamie Dimon is showing. And on top of it, right, we've also seen Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan work very closely together. But let's go through the full timeline here, because Jamie Dimon has been talking about Bitcoin for almost 10 years, where he said in 2017, Bitcoin's a fraud. He would fire any JP Morgan employee for trading it, for being stupid. Now, dismissed Bitcoin as worthless in 21, late 23. He said he's always been deeply opposed of crypto and Bitcoin in 2023. And then in 24, at Davos, he called Bitcoin a pet rock. It says it does nothing. He said Bitcoin's like smoking cigarettes. It's no intrinsic value. And then in October of this year, he decided to say, hey, blockchain is real. Stablecoins have real world use cases. And then in November, he said, oh, I was been wrong after all of this. And on top of it, that announcement in May, as you guys know, I've been covering it on my channel. Make sure you're subscribed so you get all of these announcements in real time. But I covered that JP Morgan will allow clients to buy Bitcoin products and services back in May. So he's basically now done the biggest backflip, where he originally called Bitcoin a pet rock, and now he says that there's going to be crypto and stablecoins. And I think it's all because of one reason and one reason only. They want to make more money, right? They want to be able to control this market, and they want to essentially find a way in order to do that. So JP Morgan, they've already come out and said, hey, we are going to build a stable coin with other banks. So we're going to work with other banks so we can figure out a way to control and manage all of this, right? Because that's really what this is all about. It's not about, hey, we like Bitcoin. It's going to be great for humanity, the freedom tech, all of the things that we know and love about Bitcoin. No. That's not why these bankers and these big players are in there. They're in it for a market that they can manipulate. They're in it for a market that they can pump and dump. They're in it for a market that they see as a rising one, and they're worried they're potentially losing control. And then they also see things like this from Eric Trump as well, where we're seeing, nation states starting to hoard Bitcoin on this Full Send podcast. Now, I'll play this clip for you guys here. Let me know if you're getting sound, because I've been getting notifications that I'm not. So make sure you let me know in the chat.
Want it. The biggest private wealth funds want it. Fortune 500 companies are treasuring it every single day. There's people are hoarding Bitcoin. I mean, there are major nations out there that take all their extra energy and use that to mine Bitcoin, right? And so it's becoming truly like a world-class asset right now.
So it's becoming truly a world-class asset. So JP Morgan and JP Dimon now see all of this, and same with Larry Fink. So they see the writing on the wall. All the regulations and the original negative FUD that we potentially thought about all of this. Well, now it looks like, these guys just say, hey, gloves are off. We need to figure out how to make as much money as possible off of this thing. So what does that entail? That entails having as much control over it as possible. But what's interesting is that this was all revealed right during a time when BlackRock had a massive sell-off. They dumped Bitcoin and Ethereum, but of course we just focus on Bitcoin only on this channel. And, they dumped off $673 million worth of their ETFs right on the timing that Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan had to reveal that they increased their holdings by 64% in just a few months. So you got to ask yourself, why are they doing that? Because Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink have a unique relationship. They've agreed and disagreed, and they're titans of the industry. But I think one thing that they know that they can both agree on for all of time is that they don't want to lose that control and that power. They want to make sure that their businesses are as profitable as possible. And so why is Jamie Dimon now flipping, right? He originally went from, Bitcoin's biggest critic to now give me more Bitcoin. Give me as much Bitcoin as I can possibly get. So it's interesting that we're seeing this flip, and we're seeing it slowly transition into Jamie Dimon potentially becoming let's call it just a profit maxi. I don't know if I could ever agree that Jamie Dimon is going to become a Bitcoin maxi, but we're seeing Larry Fink start to become a quote unquote profit maxi with all of this, right? And I think that as we see Larry Fink start to develop his relationship with Jamie Dimon, who originally has said he didn't care about Larry Fink changing his view on Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be very critical of him. But look who custodians all of BlackRock's asset, or not all of, but at least 1 trillion of them. Good old JP Morgan. Who do you think made that deal? Right? These deals aren't made between, let me, when I was working at JP Morgan at one point in time, I wasn't making these phone calls over to some other desk junkie at BlackRock and saying, hey, buddy, just why don't you guys give us $100 trillion or $1 trillion worth of your assets? We could custody them over at JP Morgan. It'll be chill, dude. No, it's Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink making these deals over when they're over in Saudi Arabia, when they're over at Davos, all of these other places. That's where these guys are making these deals in person, shaking their hands, trying to kiss babies. But who knows? Maybe the babies will start crying when they're around people like Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon. Either way, when we start to see JP Morgan and BlackRock get intertwined, you got to ask yourself, right? What is going on here? Because we saw the massive sell-off, and Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan have manipulated markets before. They manipulated that gold market, right? I mean, here's like a full breakdown on how they did it, and they had to pay. So it's not just speculation that JP Morgan manipulated this gold market. No. They had to pay $920 million, nearly $1 trillion, to make up for all of this. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, that's like one. But I mean, when you have a gold market where it's literally a $20 trillion asset, and Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan have the ability to manipulate this $20 trillion asset, well, it makes you think the volume here is absolutely huge. And so if they can manipulate the gold market when Bitcoin's a tenth of that size right now, well, surely they have enough money and capital to manipulate that market. And we just saw Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon, or Larry Fink and BlackRock, just dump a bunch of these Bitcoin ETF shares coincidentally before this was announced. So you got to ask yourself, that timing is very, very peculiar here, folks, because I, for one, never think you should sell your Bitcoin, especially when we've seen this dip here. And many people think that this dip can be fabricated by Jamie Dimon or Larry Fink or one of these guys. I mean, personally, I think it's just the whales selling off. I'm not surprised that we're seeing, a little bit of a dump ski here where everybody is feeling their way out, trying to figure out, hey, how is this going, right? How is this market doing? Are we going to see, things start to gobble up more Bitcoin or not? I mean, even at 101,000, if I were to tell you guys this like 5 years ago, hey, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin dumping to 101,000, nearly 102,000, worried that it just dipped under 100K for the first time in over 100 days. I mean, you would have told me I'll take that 10 times out of 10. But I think the true power of Bitcoin is not having to sell it right now, because it's the greatest collateral on planet Earth ever created. And you can use it as collateral at Salt Lending. You can go to saltlending.com/green-candle today. You do that, they're going to give you guys exclusive offers for Green Candle listeners. Now, you got to talk with them. They'll give everybody an exclusive offer based on what you're looking for. But these rates starting at 8.95%, 12-month duration, and 70% LTV, all of those things are one of the most competitive things in the market. And then you put the Salt Shield, where it's their no liquidation solution, on top of that. I mean, you're cooking with gas here, folks. I don't know how you could find a better deal to borrow against your Bitcoin than this. So I strongly encourage you guys to do that. And I think that, we're getting all this bullish signal, right? I think that it's continuing to really look at how these treasury companies are going to start to operate. Because look, we saw Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan increase like crazy the overall MSTR shareholders, but they sold off a lot in September. And what did they do? They sold off of these treasury companies, and they went and bought 60% more Bitcoin. So I think it's interesting because Jamie Dimon has essentially come out and said that there's going to be a crack in the bond market. He said that something's going to happen, right? So while Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan are loading up, he said, hey, there's going to be a crack in the bond market. And the unique thing about MSTR is that we've had the CEO of Wells Fargo essentially come out and say, hey, Strategy, the pioneer using equity markets to fund the Bitcoin treasury, setting its sights on the $300 trillion global bond market. So this is how bankers look at MSTR and these financial products as a way to tap into that global bond market. So it's interesting that now Jamie Dimon is flipping the script, selling MSTR and lowering some of that, and now buying Bitcoin. Okay, granted, they're buying just the ETFs, but hey, maybe, just maybe, am I being too optimistic here? I don't know. Let me know in the chat. I see you guys blowing it up over here. But McLovin is saying 3 years ago, people were panicking over the FTX collapse. Exactly. I think we're doing not too shabby with this, right? Because there's only 21 million. I know we got a lot of great familiar faces in the chat, but let me know. I mean, with all of these bankers coming in, do you guys feel more confident or not? Let me know in the chat and in the comments for those watching after the fact. Make sure you guys are smoking that like Cheech and Chong. But as we see MSTR, start to come in, I think it's interesting too. We're still like a month and a half away, but we could see MSTR get into that S&P 500 here pretty quickly. And, we have the Bitcoin treasury company swallowing up Bitcoin day after day after day. MSTR at 640,000 Bitcoin, and the amount of publicly traded companies at 208, with well over 1 million 1 million Bitcoin now, a full Satoshi. And those ETFs keep on stacking at over 1.5 million Bitcoin. And it's interesting because, these backflips, I don't think that we need to take these for granted because, we're seeing some interesting headlines start to come out as well, where we're starting to see the US court ruling that the FBI isn't liable for erasing a hard drive for 3,443 Bitcoin worth $340 million because they failed to disclose the ownership. I mean, this is just ridiculous here, folks. You're literally seeing the FBI, the ones that we're supposed to trust with our safety, unable to help really maintain 12 words. That's insane. But hey, the market, when we're looking at it, it's at extreme fear at 20, at the fear and greed index at 20. Even when we're at 102,000, I think that's absolutely insane. But at the end of the day, folks, we all know Bitcoin, Bitcoin only. We got to stay away from these banks to having them custody them. Bitcoin Club Malta, what's going on? It said instead of bankers, it would be better if entrepreneurs would be the big movers now. Also, SMEs. I don't know what SMEs are, but it's inevitable the bankers have joined and unlocks the next phase. Of course, I mean, to be honest, sadly, I think my mother and my father would be more comfortable having their bank hold Bitcoin over time than maybe myself or one of these other companies. A lot of these people, like, I mean, the traditional media, they just see, these big guys, right? They see FTX, Celsius, all of these things that McLovin mentioned in the chat here earlier. They see these things happen, and that's what they equate what Bitcoin is, even though it's a company, right? A company, and Bitcoin obviously is not a company. Bitcoin Malta is right. I do need a Red Bull. It's 7:30 p.m. for me here tonight in Amsterdam. I'm coming to you guys live. I'll be at the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference, and I've actually got an event. If any of you guys are in town for this, on Wednesday of next week, I'm doing a little get together with the people here in town, where we're going to Bar Bukowski. So if you guys are available, would love to see you there. Let me pull this up for you guys. I put it out on Twitter, but would love to see you guys and some familiar faces out there. If you guys can make it. If not, no worries. I understand, but I would love to see some of your familiar faces out there because we're going to have a great week here where we're starting to see more people start to come into Bitcoin. And then, I believe my man Prince Philip is actually going to be out here as well. He's the legend. If you guys haven't met him before, Prince of Serbia. He's out here orange pilling and talking about how Bitcoin is going to Bitcoin mining is going to be integrated into all of these different places. But, as we start to see these governments start to come on, we see the Bitcoin bouncing back to over 100K, making all these headlines, people just essentially starting to embrace Bitcoin more over time. I think that it's inevitable, folks. Banks are suppressing Bitcoin by the Bitcoin price by selling off in conjunction with BlackRock. We see Jamie Dimon buying Bitcoin all around the same time that BlackRock had a massive sell-off. So these guys are in cahoots. That's essentially how they are working this thing. Bitcoin Malta is asking me for my price target. I mean, I've been saying 250 by the end of the year since the beginning of this year. It's looking grim now. But hey, I mean, I guess at least 150 at this point. If we don't get a 50% run up, I mean, I think that it's interesting because this whole cycle now, it's really been extended, right? But I mean, when you look at the fundamentals, and I did a video on this the other day, I mean, if you go on Bitcoin on exchanges, right, and you get this chart, you see essentially 2.14 million Bitcoin left on exchanges. Then I asked my buddy over at Grok how many Bitcoins are on known OTC desks, right? I asked him that the other day to do this for a little research of the video. Said based on September 2025, there's 120,000 Bitcoin on OTC desks. So for those of you guys who don't know, these OTC desks, they essentially service these Bitcoin treasury companies. So an OTC desk is for somebody making 50K or more purchases generally. So for 120,000 Bitcoin for people that are purchasing this much, that's not a lot, right? And the 2.13 million Bitcoin that is left on exchanges right now, those are getting taken off all the time. And people are really looking at this as a way, to just hold their Bitcoin initially. And once they start to take this off and really practice self-custody, that's when things are going to start to get interesting. And I think all you guys should be practicing self-custody. I mean, I'm out here in Europe because of Trezor. Shout out to Trezor. They just dropped their Safe 7. It's their first ever quantum ready hardware wallet. It's with the world's first audible secure element. So all of you guys can go check it. But what's great is that I can access this whenever, wherever. It's fully wireless. I mean, I travel a bunch. So it's small, it's portable. It's got a slick touch screen, and I can use all that very easily. So make sure you guys go to the affiliate link and go get yours below, as well as getting a crypto steel case. The thing I love about this is that all the other punch plates, you can just see your seed phrase if you get access to it. Where these, right, you get a next generation capsule, you get all this. They got a tamper seal on there. So you get that tamper seal, if somebody has looked at your seed phrase. Everywhere else, they could just steal your seed phrase. You wouldn't know unless you're just checking your keys and actually going in on that. So go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle. Use promo code greencandle. You'll get 10% off that entire order. So affiliate links are down below. Yeah, there is because they're a custodian, right? I mean, I imagine, I don't know, honestly, that's a great question here about the tax implications of selling from a business. I'm sure it's probably pretty similar to selling, their assets, but I honestly have no idea what the tax implications are for a business with selling off their assets. It's a great question. I'll have to look into that. But make sure you guys are hitting that like button, hit the subscribe button for me. I got to get myself a Red Bull to get kicking. So I'm going to call it short on this one. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.